Hello and welcome to part two of this week's episode of Box to Box, the football talk show brought to you by Sportology TV with myself, Ali Drew. Just a recap on part one, we were joined by podcaster Ty Bracey, who was talking all things Aston Villa, the positive COVID test that they've had, the postponement of the game against Spurs. Since then, we've also had confirmation that there is the postponement of the game on Sunday against Everton, so all going on there. But back to today's episode, we are joined by a familiar face to the show. We are delighted to be joined by TalkSport's Hugh Woozencroft. Hugh, how are you doing? Happy New Year. Welcome back to the show.
Happy New Year. How are you doing?
Not too bad, as well as can be, I suppose, in these times. How are you?
Yeah, blessed and privileged in many ways. I'm not going to say it's as difficult for me, who's firstly still going to football matches. I know football fans are going to be jealous about that. And obviously can still go to work at the moment. Those that listen to the kickoff show on TalkSport will know that. So, of course, for all of us, things could be better. But, for me personally, again, things could be worse. And just hoping we can get back to some sense of normality soon, really.
I know, fingers crossed. But you're joining us at a good time, really. So Man United have gone top. We'll start off with that. So they are top of the league. It's 3 points clear. It's sort of unimaginable, really, because even a few weeks ago, I think it was just a couple of weeks ago, they were 14th in the table. Now they are top. Just talk to me about how pleased you are with that.
Well, any Man United fan's going to be absolutely delighted. Any football fan's going to be absolutely delighted with that. But what makes it so interesting about Manchester United, and I was talking to Tony Cascarino about this, the former Republic of Ireland striker, last night. He said, I still don't really know what Manchester United are. You don't really know what they're best at, or what they're trying to be. You look at the other big clubs, Jurgen Klopp and Pep Guardiola at Liverpool and Manchester City, and you almost say, yeah, their best team, exactly the way that they want to play, and you know what their manager's trying to do in every game. It rarely changes. Whereas Manchester United are a team that changes the lineup regularly, changes the formation regularly, tries to play different ways depending on the opposition. And I know that some people have depending on the result, meant that really for them means the manager either doesn't know what he's doing, or sometimes that he's a football genius and he gets it absolutely spot on. And that means that sort of there was a feeling with Manchester United that they couldn't win the title because they couldn't build that consistency of winning games every single week if they kept chopping and changing things. And actually now that they're winning a lot, and it's a strange position to be in. I don't make them the favourites, but like I say, it's nice to be top of the table at this point.
Yeah, because as I said a couple of weeks ago, the 14th, they weren't doing well. They had a string of not great performances. Do you think that it is the sort of run of good form that they've had, that they've gone top? Or do you think it's sort of a big combination of other teams having surprise losses, I guess, and it's the sort of inconsistency of the season as a whole that has resulted from a team going from 14th to top in a couple of weeks?
I think there's a number of factors that mean Manchester United have a good chance of winning the Premier League now. And I think in another season, they probably wouldn't have. Firstly, the depth of the squad that they have. I know people have said before, the squad's not really, really high quality, what you'd expect from a team that's going to go and win the Champions League. And no, it isn't at this point in time. But a lot of their players are fit. The vast majority of their players are fit. That means that they're able to rotate a lot at the moment. And obviously with the games coming thick and fast, that's ideal to keep the performances, consistently good. I also think not having fans in grounds has helped them as well, because I think the quality that they have, they've been able to sort of win matches away from home in particular. Their away record is absolutely fantastic at the moment, where they might be under a little bit more pressure from the crowd, and some of their players might have found it a little bit more difficult. And we've seen that with a lot of their squad in the past. Their away form was poor. Now it's completely transformed, and you've got to think that no fans in opposing grounds has something to do with that. Their home form hasn't been particularly spectacular. Maybe that's something to do with having no home fans at the moment as well, because when things are going badly, your home fans, Manchester United fans are very, very good, I've got to say, but not all of them are going to be overjoyed, let's call it that. There wasn't a feeling of euphoria going to Old Trafford for a while. So there's a series of combinations, but I think some of the new players that have come into the squad as well have just added that, I wouldn't say extra quality, but just the numbers of good players have increased with the 3 or 4 that came in the likes of Edinson Cavani and Alex Telles, Van de Beek. It's just a little bit extra for Man United when they make those changes as well. But I still think it will come down to some of the big games, and this weekend's a huge one to see exactly what Ole Gunnar Solskjaer can do against Jurgen Klopp. But Liverpool have injuries at the moment. That is a factor. The season as a whole is a factor. I think everyone will have dips. We were talking about Tottenham Hotspur maybe winning the league. We were talking about Chelsea maybe winning the league. Everyone's had their ups and downs, and it might just be that Manchester United are in their up point at the moment, and there might be some more trials and tribulations for them before the end of the season.
Well, you did just mention this weekend's game, obviously United v Liverpool. It's a big, big game. It's come at the best time. It's the most exciting time for this game to have come. Obviously, you're hoping for a United win. What do you think that United need to do to get that win, and how do you actually see it going?
I've got to say, I will take, like most of these games turn out to be, a really stale, boring draw. If Manchester United get a point from this game, I'll feel like a cup final win. I'll be absolutely delighted. Just to stay top of the table, maybe a psychological win as well, to say to Liverpool, we can't beat these guys at the moment. It's going to be a really difficult season for us. I think just making sure that Manchester United don't lose the game is almost as important as probably winning it from my perspective. The way I think they'll do that is probably the way that they've played against this Liverpool side before, which is to play with three at the back. I think it will be Shaw, Maguire and Eric Bailly, who's massively improved of late, and two wing backs, Telles and Wan-Bissaka, because it's the wide areas that Liverpool excel in. Robertson and Mane down one side, Salah and Alexander-Arnold down the other. And, those wide areas you don't want. If we played four at the back, Luke Shaw, Aaron Wan-Bissaka getting doubled up, having to do a lot of the work on their own, and Liverpool having a lot of joy in those areas. So I think he's going to basically plug the game, kill it off, bore us all to death. We'll all be excited going into it. It's probably going to be really, really boring. Fred and McTominay will play in central midfield. But I think that's the way Manchester United have to play. And like I say, I think Ole Gunnar Solskjaer will see it the same way. If Manchester United get at least a point in that game, it's massive for them. So I think that will be their approach. And if he needs to change it and go more attacking and play more on the counter-attack, then he's got the ability to do that. So I think that's how we'll start the game. Liverpool will control most of the possession, as I think they would. Doesn't matter what Man United play, because I think they're a really high-quality side and they have some fantastic players. So it's more on United to sit deep. Liverpool will take the game to them. And it will be, the question will be asked, what can you do? Can you break us down, Liverpool? And it'll be interesting to see if they can answer it at the moment, because, of course, most of their front players are fit. It's at the back where they've got the most concerns.
Yeah, because as you say, Liverpool will be going into this game in a completely different mind frame. They need the win. They need to attack. They need to get as much possession as they can. It's going to be different tactics from each team. But do you think that Klopp? Obviously, it's not the season they had last year. They were just dominant last year. Everything sort of came easy to them. Liverpool were just completely dominant the whole season. But so do you think that Klopp and the team are handling this sort of more level season okay? Do you think that presumably they would have known it wouldn't be so easy for them, but do you think that they're going about it the right way? Obviously they are still up at the top of the table. They're second at the moment, so they're doing well, having a good season, but not the same as last year.
I think they've handled it very well. Look, the fans, it was a massive shock to lose Virgil van Dijk. I think it would have been for some of the players as well. And I know Gini Wijnaldum, for example, spoke about players losing sleep after that Virgil van Dijk injury. I think the bigger blow then off the back of that would have been to lose Joe Gomez. And you're looking at it and you're thinking, right, pretty much our two starting centre-backs are out. Joel Matip, has regular injury problems. A couple of young players, Phillips and Williams have come into the central defensive area. They've been okay. But I think as a unit, as a team, as a whole, Jurgen Klopp and Liverpool have handled it really well, because no one is as good as they were last season. No team in the league. It looks like it could be a really low points total to win the title. It could be a pretty low points total to survive at the bottom of the table. So everyone has been impacted by the changes. And for Liverpool to still be second in the table, and for me, alongside Man City, still favourites really, shows the quality of the coaching really there, because The players that have come in, not just the two defenders I've mentioned, but Curtis Jones in central midfield, you know, they've slotted in. They're beginning to improve. I think they'll have more of an influence throughout the season. And I think you've got to give credit to the job Jurgen Klopp's doing at the moment, because it will pay dividends for Liverpool down the line, I think.
Well, just mentioning managers there, obviously Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is manager of United. You have recently said, I think it was with a conversation with Andy Cole, you said that you didn't think that Ole was good enough for the role. That was when they were in 14th. Obviously now they're top. Do you feel differently about that, or do you still stand by the fact that he's maybe just not ready?
Well, yeah. Look, what I said to Andy Cole, I think, it was slightly contrived, but I was talking about Manchester United being back where we all expect Manchester United to be, which is winning Champions Leagues, regularly challenging for the Premier League title. And at the moment, you'd have to say they are challenging for the Premier League title pretty much halfway through the season, and they're top. But like I said a little bit earlier on, you still don't really know what Manchester United you're going to get. They're getting results at the moment. But even the game against Burnley, for example, showed, it's a tough game away from home, okay, but it's not like you're watching Liverpool or City. You're not watching a team that goes out, really imposes itself, creates loads of clear-cut goal-scoring opportunities, dominates the opposition. I think we could all tell if Manchester United were that team at the moment. They're not yet that team. They've played really well in some games. They've played okay, not great in others, and what they want, for me, to be that team that is challenging for Champions League titles once again and regularly challenging for Premier League titles, is that consistency. Back to doing what Liverpool are doing at the moment, not losing a game at home for a couple of seasons. That is sort of the level that you want to be at. You want to be a team that breezes through the Champions League group stage, not one that gets knocked out, having won the first couple of games. That's the sort of level that I was talking about. And at this point in time, I still don't think Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is going to be the guy that regularly has them at that level, because we just haven't seen them be that dominant side that I think they need to be. Now, you can say it's all about players, but I think they've got a pretty good squad at the moment, Manchester United. Look, the reality situation is, if he wins the Premier League title this year, it's incredible. It's incredible for me because he was a legend to me. I've got shirts with his name on the back. I absolutely adore the guy, having met him now in the job that I'm doing. He's just the loveliest bloke. If he wins a title for Manchester United, his legendary status. I mean, you can build the statue outside the ground for me if he manages it with this squad. But I still think those factors that I mentioned a little bit earlier on with the changes in football at the moment are helping Manchester United. If they win the title, of course, I'll be in dreamland. But will we, when fans are back in stadiums and football gets back to normal, will this be a dominant team? That for me still is a big question mark over Ollie.
Because at the moment, in recent football times, I suppose, it wasn't like this back in the day, but nowadays, managers don't last that long. They're very, as soon as they have a sort of run of bad form, very quick to be out the door, get sacked. And in a way, it's almost difficult and it's not just Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, but when there's a legend from the club as manager. So then, like Frank Lampard, it's happened quite a lot. Does that make it more difficult for fans and people around a club to sort of completely objectively say whether they're good enough or not? Because I love Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and I'm like, he's a legend at United. He's manager, he's brilliant. It almost sort of warps the view of whether they actually are right for the role.
I think in the Manchester United fan base, it has massively divided people, because I think those people that think he's a legend and needs to be given as much time as possible, because of that, they're in dreamland at the moment, like I say, and those of us that said he wasn't good enough are eating our words a little bit. But I don't think from the club's perspective it makes much of a difference. If Manchester United lost the next 10 games, I think he'd get fired. There have been opportunities in the past for him to be dismissed, and I think the reason that he's stayed is because of the constant changing that has happened at Manchester United of the manager. In the context of that club, I think they just wanted a little bit of stability. They wanted a lot of players out the door, which I think Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, I think he's going to be pretty good at over the next two transfer windows in getting players out of the club that Manchester United don't need or want. And I think after that point in time, and more players coming in that he's selected and he's chosen, we might get to see the exact squad that he wants. And I think he will be judged very strongly on his team, his players. And if they're not a very good side after all of that, then I don't think he will have the same leeway that he's got at the moment. But currently it's a transition period, and he's the guy to take Manchester United through those changes to the squad. And maybe some wider changes to the club as well, whether a director of football arrives or not. He might, for all we know, be that director of football in the next couple of years. So, look, it's going to be really interesting to see. We talk about Frank Lampard and Roman Abramovich and how he sees his club. That legendary status clearly doesn't affect him. It's reported this week that he's already had conversations with Massimiliano Allegri. He's already spoken to Thomas Tuchel, just in case things don't go right with Frank Lampard and who might be coming in the door. But we also know at Chelsea, even if you win titles and even if you win FA Cups, you're probably only going to be in charge for 2 seasons anyway. And I think Frank Lampard knew that when he went to the club too. So yeah, each club has its own context, its own desires and wants. And Manchester United at the moment, positive for them and credit to them, sticking by their manager, and they could get a huge reward at the end of it.
What sort of players from the United team? There's a lot of youngsters in there. Are there any particular players that have really sort of stood out for you this season and really stepped up? Because there's a lot that have come through, obviously, the sort of youth in the academy at United.
I think you've got to say people like Scott McTominay are having a great season at the moment. Of course, he came through the academy at Manchester United. He's had his doubters, he's had his detractors. He's been great for Scotland, and maybe that's helped his confidence as well. But yeah, he's playing really well at the moment. People like Fred, of course, who most people were saying, oh my God, this is a huge flop of a signing for 50 million. He's played pretty well, and these two get selected in most of the big games, and I expect them to play against Liverpool as well. I've been impressed with Cavani, what he's added to the competition in forward areas. Marcus Rashford, who was in really bad form in 2020, the first half of the year, and when football came back after lockdown, he's improved massively of late. But I think one of the positive things for Manchester United is the number of the number of players to choose from. Any given game, Van der Beek hasn't played many matches, but he's not a bad player to bring in, is he? Paul Pogba wasn't starting many matches. He's come in and he's done really well of late. Bruno Fernandes has been the standout player for Manchester United over the last 12 months, and he continues to do good things. And when he doesn't, thankfully, people like Pogba have stepped up into the fold, or people like Rashford. And I think that's one of the important things as well at Manchester United at the moment, in that when a player doesn't have a particularly great game, there's another player at the moment who is standing up and playing pretty well. That's helping them out. And again, that's all about having a quality squad. Like I say, to be a really competitive side regularly for the Champions League, for the Premier League title, all of those players have to regularly stand up and be consistent. And hopefully Manchester United are getting to that point. But a lot of the players have been impressive without, we haven't got, I don't think at this point in time, maybe Bruno Fernandes, a sort of player of the season candidate, probably him. But in many regards, a lot of the players in Manchester United's squad are in sort of the top 30 performers in the Premier League so far this season. So that is a big positive for them.
As a whole of the season, what club has sort of surprised you? They've been performing regularly. They weren't really expected to be doing well. Who's your sort of surprise?
I think Aston Villa for me are the big surprise, because last year I spoke about how I didn't think Dean Smith tactically was the right manager for Aston Villa. I thought there were too many games last season where it was really on the manager to react, either change the formation, change the players, make some substitutes, have an effect on the game. And I didn't feel like during the match he was having, as a manager, as much of an effect on that team as he could have. I think there were periods where there was such a malaise. It looked like there was inevitable that they were going to get relegated. Maybe lockdown helped them and they had a bit of a refresh, and Dean Smith had more time to think about his tactics and how he uses his players, because they were much better after lockdown, and eventually they stayed up with a slice of luck thanks to goal line technology. But this season, maybe they've shown why the football gods should have been smiling on them, because they've been far, far better. Okay, there are better players at the Aston Villa squad at the moment, but Dean Smith has to do something with them. And it's not just like they're okay, they're 13th, 14th. They have been fantastic at points this season, a great team to watch. Far more attacking quality, in their movement, they've been far better. Their final third quality has been really, really good. And their defence is the main change for me. It's been really tight in a lot of games. You know, it's transformed, and I don't see why, because the personnel is not massively different. And in that regard, I think I've got to give credit to Dean Smith. So they've been my major surprise of the season, I guess. And yeah, hopefully for them it continues.
Well, they're having a bit of trouble at the moment, obviously, with the COVID results. They've had a lot of, I think, 10 members of the team and some of the background staff have all tested positive, so they're getting games postponed. Do you think that, I mean, there's people saying it's not fair that they're getting preferential treatment, it's not fair for the other teams that, you know, what do you sort of see as the solution to that? Because they can't not postpone them. If they've got no squad, what can they do?
Yeah, well, yeah. The Villa fans give me a bit of flack this morning on social media because of Adrian Durham, one of our other presenters, basically saying they've been given preferential treatment. But it was a little bit tongue-in-cheek from me. I'm not sure about Adrian, but, you know, their training ground doesn't reopen until the morning of the game against Everton. So it would have been very, very harsh to get them to play the game. But the reason I sort of retweeted Adrian and said he's got a little bit of a point is really around how far we take the postponements in the Premier League at the moment, because there could be loads more. Look what's happening with the variant. Look what's happening with infections. Maybe football gets stopped and there won't be postponements in that regard and the season will be moved. Or it might go down to points per game. But at this point in time, there could be a huge number of postponements, and there could be a few teams towards the end of the season that have to play 8 games in the last couple of weeks. Is that how we want the season to end? You know, teams petering out because they've got so many games to play in the last couple of weeks? Not really. So the fact that I think the point Adrian was making is they played the kids in the FA Cup because the FA said, well, that's your option. So why not play the kids against Everton? And maybe there is some merit in that, but I think the Premier League want their product to be the likes of Jack Grealish playing, the likes of Ollie Watkins playing, the likes of Tyrone Mings playing. They don't want the kids to play in their competition, whereas the FA, you know, that's just what they had to do because they can't postpone games because they can't control as much of the calendar as the Premier League does. So I think it's fine to postpone Villa's games at the moment. I just wonder whether at some point the Premier League is sitting there and they've got 7, 8, 9 clubs who want a game postponed. What can they do then? Because then you're starting to say, well, you're going to have to start forfeiting matches. You can't just keep moving games further down the line. And then teams that are in the latter stages of the Champions League or the Europa League are having to play, you know, in the final month of the season, 16 games. You know, you don't want that to happen. And inevitably soon, I think very soon, within the next sort of 2 to 3 weeks, the decisions will start being made that postponements won't be relevant. And then fans will start saying, well, that's really unfair because it happened to Newcastle, Fulham and Aston Villa. They all had their matches postponed. Why not us? You know, especially if you haven't got European football. But of course, if you're playing a team that does, well, then you can't just keep kicking the can down the road in terms of those games. So look, it's a difficult decision for the Premier League. And I think soon, like I say, they'll have to start drawing the line.
Well, as you said there, obviously when they got the kids out, the youth, I mean, they performed well. They did lose, but they had a great game. It was actually unbelievable, considering they were all the youngsters and they up against Liverpool. It was great. But just before we finish, I do want to ask your final prediction for this weekend. Man United v Liverpool, what do you think the score will be?
Oh, I'm going to go for 1-1. And it's not going to be a great game to watch. I am perfectly happy with that as long as Manchester United get a point. But I think they will try and stifle Liverpool's attack. They will sit pretty deep, which means they won't have much in attack. Probably get a goal on the counter, you know, depending on whether it's Fabinho and Henderson at the heart of the defence for Liverpool or one of the youngsters. And Liverpool will probably get a goal through someone like Salah. And tight game. Not a great spectacle, but hopefully a couple of goals at least. If not a goalless draw, I'll take that as well.
Oh, I want loads of goals. Hugh, thank you so much for joining us. It's been great talking to you, and good luck to United for the weekend, for staying top, and hopefully we'll catch up again soon.
Thank you. Pleasure as always. Thanks.
Great to be joined there by Hugh Woozencroft, and we look forward to that big game on Sunday, Liverpool versus Man United. But stay tuned, we have lots more lined up. We've got some huge guests booked to be coming on the show in the next few weeks. So please, guys, do what you can to support the channel. Subscribe, leave some comments, share the videos, whatever you can. We appreciate it, and we will see you next time.